Rosie, you want to come on up? Rosie Tamayo is our district BCBA, and what that stands for is Board Certified Behavior Analyst. So she is a genius in all things child development, behavior, all the things. So I wish I had known Rosie when my boys were younger. I think she could have been of some help to me. So I hope you guys will enjoy this, and she'll have some time for questions at the end. And we will love to get that feedback survey from you. And also, we do have door prizes, so if you didn't get signed in and have a chance to put your name on one of the little blue pieces of paper, we'll want to do that before you leave so that we can get you signed up to maybe win one of our prizes tonight. Okay, Rosie, I'm going to turn it over to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you all for being here, and for your flexibility. I know that we had to reschedule this once before, but I hope everyone's healthy now and everybody stays warm during all this weather. Being that it's a small group, we're going to be casual, so feel free to raise your hand as I speak if you need additional clarifications, and I hope you enjoy it. A little bit about myself. I have been fortunate enough to grow my career here in Norman Public Schools. I started out as a para in a special education room, and then I took over that classroom over at Truman Primary. And from there, I was fortunate enough to fall into this role as a behavior specialist and now the BCBA for the district. I am an MPS parent of a 5th grader and a college freshman. That is still weird to say. He just graduated from Norman North last year. So we have been in Norman for about 10 years. I'm originally from Florida, so it's been a great opportunity to raise my kids here, have my career here. So on the agenda tonight, we are going to talk about what is behavior. And we're going to do an introduction of the 4 functions of behavior. When we start to see behaviors arise, it's usually trying to communicate something. And we are going to try to figure out what that something is. From there, we're going to get into little specifics of each of the functions and some strategies that we can use as we see these behavior rises. And then we're going to have time for questions. So, behavior is some form of communication. What we see is the surface, right? We see that they're having a moment and they're crying or they're angry, they're frustrated. What we're not seeing is the underlying at the bottom, right? And it could be different things. They may not have the skills to effectively communicate what they are needing. They may be hungry, they may be tired, they may be wanting some type of attention and they just don't know how to appropriately ask for it. So that is what we're going to focus on tonight, is that underlying communication that our kids are trying to tell us and how we support them best. I'm a little nervous, first time, so perfectly. We always say behavior influences behavior. And what that means is us as parents is our behavior inadvertently influences our children's behavior. We are stressed. We work. We have to take them to practice. We're on a time clock, right? As soon as we're out of work, we may hit traffic. We have to go to the grocery store. And all of that added pressure when dealing with our own children's emotional behaviors can actually, they feed off of that. So sometimes we have to pause. As parents, we have to pause and we have to say, okay, what are they telling me? It is important that we model that. As a parent, sometimes I'm like, okay, I see you're frustrated. I don't like the tone. Let me pause and see what you're trying to tell me. Give me 2 minutes. I'm going to come back in and we'll have this conversation. Because if I get upset at what she's telling me, then we're not getting anywhere. She's upset, I'm upset. So when we start decoding these behaviors, they usually fall within 4 functions: sensory automatic, escape, attention, and tangibles. And sometimes the behavior is multifunctional. Sometimes it could be 1 thing, 2 things, all 4 of these things. And we just have to break down which one are we going to focus on first. So when we talk about sensory behaviors, these behaviors occur in order to gain some type of sensory input. It's automatically reinforcing to them. And whether it happens, whether someone's there, someone's not. And it can either be self-soothing or self-stimulating. Think about us. We get overstimulated. What do? Some of us go to the gym, some of us go for a walk, we use quiet music, some of us need that white noise to fall asleep. Our kids are like that too. We have to figure out what is it that they're needing. So what does this look like? Sometimes it looks like, and these are just 3 examples, but it looks different for every child. Sometimes they rock back and forth to self-soothe. They start tapping or clicking, or textures. How many of us have had that argument with our kids about, I don't like this sweater, I don't like how this feels? I think my daughter was 2 when we could not do the socks with the lines. That was a big meltdown. So I either could figure out a solution for it, which was buy socks without the line or wear sandals, then have that power struggle. And she outgrew it, but it's things that we may not think about at the moment, but as you kind of start to see that pattern, like they don't like that dry fit material. That's bothersome to them. Or the tag, how many of your kids start saying, hey, Mom, that tag bothers me, and then you have to take the tag apart. So those are sensory types of behavior that we see. So in a home, what does that look like? So it can start with you sitting at a table and they're overwhelmed by the noise in the conversation, so they start rapidly tapping their fingers on the table. So what happens after? That repetitive tapping gives them that input that allows them to focus on the conversation. It helps soothe them so that they're able to focus. So when we see this, some things that we can do is teach them when we can do those behaviors. Hey, this is time for sensory play. We can do sensory play outside with water, with Play-Doh. Or if they like to rock back and forth, maybe we find them a solution, right? Their room may have a swing outside, the swing's there, or a little rocking chair. We want to praise and give them rewards for appropriate behaviors, such as, hey, I see you're overstimulated, but you have a calm body. Thank you for having that calm body, because now we're teaching them those replacement behaviors. And if the behavior happens, that's okay, because there's strategies for that too. So what we can do is give them something to do instead. So if maybe that they're tapping or stemming with their hands, let's cut it. We're redirecting the behavior. We're giving them another calming strategy. And sometimes you're just gonna have to redirect and interrupt that behavior and get their focus across to something else. Other things that we can do in the home is reduce the clutter within the home. I know I'm one that gets really anxious when I see clutter in my home, and I immediately have to start cleaning. But we can create a space for them that is calm and soothing. Maybe a little space in their room in the corner where they have a blanket, they have pillows, they have their favorite stuffies, and that's a place that they can go to relax and just soothe themselves. You can create sensory bins. And that can just be a little box of like Play-Doh, water beads, kinetic sand. Or you can give them movement. If what they're looking for is movement, let's go for a walk outside. Let's put on a yoga video and help calm their bodies down. So these are different things that we can help within the home to help with their behaviors if it's sensory driven. Escape. I think this is what we see most as parents. They're avoiding a task. Their behaviors, they're trying to avoid an activity, a person, an environment, and it's sometimes obvious, right? You ask them to clean up and they're like, no, I'm not doing it. Or they start to cry, or they start to throw things. So, escape behavior could be that refusal, running away, the crying, and we see this often enough. An example is, again, we ask the child to clean up. The child ignores the request, and we as parents end up cleaning up for them. So in situations like that, sometimes that task can be very daunting for them. So in order to maybe prevent them from escaping that task, what we could do is modify it for them and make it more fun. Laundry's not a favorite thing for my household. It overwhelms my daughter. So as we start to give her that independent skills, we did it together. I said, I'm gonna tackle this, I'm gonna hang up your clothes, and you're gonna put your clothes away in the drawer. And then as she started doing it and we gave that momentum, then we switched it to where she started to do it more independently. But I had to start the help because the task was too big for her. So of course she's gonna wanna avoid it. So other strategies is we start with something that you know they like to do. And then we build up to the things that they don't prefer to do. So maybe we're playing with Play-Doh and it's time to clean up. We play, okay, let's clean up the Play-Doh. Oh, you know what? Let's go clean up your room. You build that momentum for them. And it's just small little stepping stone for them. And it doesn't seem so big. You can also implement a structured schedule. And that's hard for us, right? Because our lives are so unpredictable. We have so many schedules. We have so many things we need to do. That I usually suggest to start with a time of day that you know you're always there. Start small. Maybe it's dinner time. You guys do dinner time together? Start your dinner time routine there. We're gonna eat dinner, then I'm gonna clean the dishes, you're gonna clean the table. We're gonna do this all together as a family. So it doesn't seem like they're doing it alone. And then you teach them how to appropriately ask for a break or help. You can see that they're frustrated. They don't have the words to say they're frustrated. So you say, hey, it looks like you need help. Your body's telling me you're frustrated. Just say, Mom, I need help. And then you practice those appropriate behaviors and you give them the words. Because even us as adults, we sometimes forget how to use our words when we're frustrated. We need a moment to think and clear our minds. And then you give them that praise and the breaks and the rewards when they actually do those activities that they're avoiding. And then afterwards, let's say they still avoided, other strategies to follow through is you don't let up on the task. What you do is you give them a break. So even as a classroom teacher, I would see that my kids didn't want to work. I would say, okay, are we ready or not ready to work? And I would give them that time. And if they said, I'm not ready, I said, okay, tell me when you're ready. Do you need 2 more minutes or do you need 3 more minutes? I gave them control there. I said, okay. Then at 3 minutes, I would check in. I said, are you ready or not ready? And that's okay to do it at the house. Sometimes we have to do that. Sometimes we have to pause and say, hey, I see you're not ready. You need a moment. How much time do you need? And then you check in with them. I'm not letting go of the task that I'm asking. We're just pausing. And then, again, a lot of it is focused on positive reinforcement. You are positively reinforcing the behaviors you want to see. You're saying, great job for cleaning up. You worked so hard on that. I can see that was hard and you did it. You give them that specific praise. You did a hard thing. Cleaning up was hard for you. I am proud of you. So other things we can do is create a visual schedule. And sometimes we do this with chores. Like we have a chores chart, but you can do that with anything. You can do that with, let's say, your dinner schedule. Okay, we're gonna eat, we're gonna shower, we're gonna sleep, we're gonna read a book and sleep. That is our schedule, we're gonna follow that. You're giving them predictability. They know the expectation and they know the routine. You're gonna minimize distraction. We live in an era where there's iPhones, there's TVs, there's all these distractions. You want to minimize that. And when possible, allow for that choice. Okay, we have to clean up the room and then we have to clean up the living room. Which one do you want to do first? That's a choice that you're okay with and they're able to choose where they want to start. A language that I use a lot, even in the classroom, is first then or when then. No is a hard thing for our students to hear. No is a big trigger. we're not saying no, we are approaching it differently. We're saying, when you do this, then you can do this. The expectation is clear and concise. When we clean up, then we can play. When you do this, then we can go out to the store. No's not there, but the expectation is clear for them. So attention behavior is behaviors that happen in order to receive some type of social interaction from others, and it can be either positive or negative. We like to change this verbiage and say that they're connection seeking. They want some type of connection. And what is that? That's what we're gonna figure out. So what can this look like? It can be excessive talking, it can be throwing things, it can be an exaggerated reaction. I think COVID changed a lot of things for us, including working from home, and that's hard for our kiddos. You know, they don't understand mom and dad are working, it's not time yet, and then they're constantly just trying to get your attention. So an example of this, it could be you're on the phone, it happens many times, we're on the phone, and then our child decides to throw something or scream something, or that's when an argument starts to happen. And then immediately we react to it, right? We turn around, we give them their attention, like, what is going on, what do you need? So things that we can do is, we can provide that attention ahead of time. We call this non-contingent reinforcement, where we are front-loading that attention. With that, we also set expectations, right? You can say, okay, mom has a meeting at this time. Let's play now, and then when mom has the meeting, I'm gonna need you to go to your room or go with somebody and, you know, just do what you need to do so that mom can do the meeting. And then when mom's done, we can go back to playing. We have to teach them the way that they can appropriately request that attention. And then, of course, again, positive reinforcement. We're going to praise them for doing that. You can say, hey, I know waiting was hard, but you waited for mom to get off the phone call. I'm so proud of you. And it's going to happen, whether, you know, there's going to happen. There's going to be times where, hey, we're going to try to front load this, but it's not going to work. After the fact, what we want to do is we want to ignore the attention-seeking behavior, not the child. So whatever that attention-seeking behavior is. So if it's mom, 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 we want to ignore the mom. And then as soon as they pause, they're like, oh, thank you. Thank you. I see that you wanted my attention. Give me 2 minutes. I will be right with you. So I ignore that piece, but then I reinforce that appropriate behavior. You waited for me. Thank you. I appreciate that. And then you want to state the correct way. So a lot of times for me is if they're trying to interrupt me, I say, oh, remember, say excuse me. They say excuse me, and then I'm teaching that skill. Okay, thank you for saying excuse me. Can you give me 2 minutes, and I'll be right with you. So as we are handling the situation, I'm modeling my expectation. I'm letting them know that I hear you. I'm going to be with you in 2 minutes. And then we're going to wait, because that's part of life. Sometimes we have to wait. So to front load this, you can create a special time. You know, at this time it's mommy and me time. We're gonna read a book, we're gonna take a walk, whatever that is. Positive reinforcement. That is the key to everything, is positive reinforcement. And then you want to communicate. Communicate that expectation. Okay, this is what's gonna happen first, this is what's gonna happen next, and then, you know, third, you walk them through. Because I think even us as adults, we like to know what to expect. We like to know our routine, and we don't like to deviate from it. Lastly, the last function is trying to obtain some type of tangible. So they want to gain access to a preferred item or activity, and sometimes trying to gain access to that goes hand in hand with escape. So sometimes they want to escape this to get something else. And we see this all the time. I want a toy, I want the iPad. They're reaching for that desired item, they're yelling, they're taking away things from others. So an example of this would be, you're in the kitchen, they see the cookie, they begin to cry and point at the cookie, and then we give them the cookie. That's them trying to gain access to a preferred item. So some strategies is teaching them that communication skill. Okay, I see you're pointing, what would you like? And then model that, oh, you want cookie. And then immediately reinforce it, if it's an option, clearly, it's not time for cookies. Hey, after dinner, we'll have the cookie. Once they ask nicely and consistently, teach them to wait. That would be the next step. As we teach them to communicate, we sometimes immediately reinforce, and like, oh, you need a break, I'm gonna give you a break, you need this, I'm gonna give you this. As they gain the skills to request things, the next step would be, okay, you can have this in 5 minutes, or when this happens, then you can have this. And then you can always use those items as a reward. So with your chores list, okay, we have to do these 5 things, and then you can get that item. So we're teaching them, we're gonna wait, but we're gonna follow a routine, and then when we do X, Y, Z, then we're gonna get access to that item. So we're gonna make our bed, we're gonna brush our teeth, and then you can have 5 minutes of iPad time. And then, that doesn't always happen. In an ideal world, it would happen. If it doesn't after the fact and the behavior still happens, we're still gonna teach them. We're still gonna teach how to effectively communicate. And I say, okay, you're yelling, I don't understand you because you're yelling. When you are ready to talk, we'll talk, and then when they ask for it, then you reinforce it. Because we want to reinforce those appropriate behaviors. So again, the when-then approach, using those when-then statements, when this happens, you set those clear expectations, and you communicate. So, in conclusion, we want to be proactive instead of reactive. If we know that XYZ typically gives a behavior as a response, then let's figure out why that is happening and then approach it proactively. You want to account for those triggers and how we can modify them. And you want to assess and change how we respond our own behaviors. We want to assess and modify our own behaviors before we respond to them. And then you want to teach appropriate skills to fill the need or match the function. Okay, do you guys have any questions?
I have a question.
Yeah.
The attention-seeking behavior, connection-seeking behavior, you said if they behave appropriately, they don't give any kind of attention whatsoever. What about like just picking them up and placing them in the room and saying, you behave appropriately, we can talk, or like you're in the middle of the grocery store and your kid's having a meltdown, you know, just be like,
No, absolutely. So a lot of the times, that's when sometimes we have those restorative conversations after the fact. Like you said, there's going to be moments that we're going to be in the grocery stores and behaviors happen. And then when we get home is where you want to say, hey, but I saw that you are frustrated. Let's talk about this. Sometimes we go into a power struggle and we want to try to avoid that power struggle. So if it's easier, just take a pause and go back to the conversation later. And then give them those options for that, what they are seeking, right? Okay, what were you trying to communicate? What is it that you wanted? Okay, how can you get what you want? Okay, you can ask, you can do this, you can do that. Every child's different. Even myself as a parent, how I parented my son is different how I parent my daughter. The strategies work differently per child. Any other questions?
So how do you deal with the behavior in the moment, like if you're out in public? I understand, talking about it later, but how do you deal with it at that moment?
You have to make sure that you're calm and cool and collective. And it's hard when you're out in public. So it's very hard when you're having a moment and then people are staring at you. You just have to affirm their feelings. Like they're having strong feelings. There's nothing wrong with affirming, I see you're frustrated. However, XYZ, is not the appropriate way. We can talk about it, we can go sit in the bench and have a discussion. Sometimes you have to wait it out. Sometimes you're just gonna have to say, when you're ready to walk, we can go. And that's okay, because even in my own classroom as a teacher, I would have to wait for them to be ready. I'm not going to not do something that's gonna make them like even more mad. So you just have to wait. And that's when I use those words like, are you ready or not ready? And I frequently check in with them. And I say, hey, I'm here, you're safe, let me know when you're ready to go.
Rosie, if you had to leave the grocery store because the behavior was so extreme that you couldn't finish shopping, people were starting to look at you, it's getting ugly, and you had to leave, how would you go have that sort of conversation at a later time? Maybe if you could walk us through that.
So for me personally, when we're in a calmer space, then we discuss our feelings, like what happened at the grocery store, if they're able to. We go through the whole scenario of where it started, why it happened, why she did what she did, and then we look at those follow-up skills. Okay, these are options. I'm very much, when this is not appropriate, I'll let her know this is not appropriate behavior, and that's not something we accept in our family. But we're able to have that conversation, and that's my child's skill level. Each child's different. That all depends on their skill level, what they can understand. I'm lucky enough to be able to have that type of conversations with my kids, and they're able to respond. Like I said, each child's different, and how you parent them, you do what you feel more comfortable with your child.
How do you get them out of the situation when they're in the middle of that tantrum and they're not willing to listen?
And that's where we go back
Remove
to,
them from this situation until they can calm themselves down.
so a lot of times I have a more proactive approach when I know that there's certain situations that may trigger behavior. Then I go and I front load the expectations. I said, this is what's gonna happen. We're gonna go X, Y, Z, this is the order that we're gonna go, and this is how long we're gonna be. I give my kids the expectation. This is where we're going here first, here second, here third. It's been years in the making. It has been a lot of practice. This weekend alone, we had 2 conflicts for her schedules, and I probably started 3 weeks ago when I told her, hey, we have softball and we have volleyball. We're most likely gonna have to do softball. And it's been a conversation for 3 weeks that this is the expectation. It's a lot of shifting your mindset and being proactive versus reactive. So I know that these certain situations will trigger behavior from my child, and I front load as much as possible what I can do to help her in those scenarios. Exactly. I prepared her ahead of time for those changes. I know her when we go on vacation and we're on a week, I know by day 3, we need a reset, because by day 3, she has a hard time. So I know that by this time, we're slowing down our days. We're not doing all these fun activities because I know she can't handle that. So you all are your child's advocate, you know your child the best. So as you start to really look at scenarios and what triggers them, you can make a plan ahead of time.
I love how you're getting to teach through the behavior.
Yeah.
I think of, like, children can't swim, we teach them to swim. They can read, we teach them to read. But behavior, I think a lot of times we try to punch that out of our children. And before they can regulate themselves, their own emotions, they have to learn co-regulation. So we have to show up with our calm and literally download that.
And listen, sometimes it doesn't go perfectly.
Right.
Like sometimes I have to walk away from the room and say, okay, I need a moment. And then when I have my moment and I'm in a better space to address it, I will address it. I'm not perfect. Listen, it's been a lot of years of practice and figuring out what works best for my family.
And it's, like you said, years in the making.
Yeah.
So depending on the age of the child, your 3-year-old, you're gonna offer choices to that sound much different than your 10-year-old.
Exactly.
So in the store, do you wanna hold this hand or do you want me to carry you out of the store in that moment of upset?
Yeah.
I think, too.
It's a lot of practice and it's a lot of, and it changes. I mean, my kids have changed at every stage, and what worked at 3 does not work now at 11. Any other questions? Yeah.
What about What do you do with the child that is never ready?
Yeah, so you're lighting. At some point, you put the boundary. You know, we give opportunities, 2 or 3 opportunities, and then at that point, you're like, okay, we're going. You know, it happens. You're like, okay, we gotta go now. We're gonna be late. We gotta go. But I do give those opportunities a few times ahead before I say, okay, I have to put my mom hat on and we're going. But sometimes having visuals helps. Like if you have like a actual schedule of what your day goes, especially for littles, just having that picture outline of like, okay, we're gonna go here first, and then here, and then that way they know exactly what's happening, and that transition is easier for them. Any other questions? Anything? Yeah.
When you're talking about sensory, automatic, and tapping fingers, there's lots of things that you do to either they're bored or they're trying to
Communicate.
soothe themselves.
Yes.
But sometimes those things trigger other people in the house and it starts to create some chaos. Do you have any strategies for that?
Goes back to communication, explaining to them why that behavior is happening, and teaching. That's where we kind of teach that empathy skill. Like he's having a moment or she's having a moment. This is why they're doing this. How can we help them in that moment? It goes back to teaching empathy and saying, okay, when you're upset, what do you do? And then you walk through it. And they're like, okay, when they're upset, this is what they do. And that way we teach. I taught a lot of non-speaking children in the classroom. And when I would push into the classroom, they would ask questions. And I said, you know what? We all learn differently at different times. They're still learning. So you can explain to them, you know, they're still learning how to regulate themselves. I know you've mastered this and you've learned, but how can we help them while they're upset? And just give, again, just explain, children are like us, they like to know what's going on and have explanations. And sometimes we're so busy with our day-to-day that we forget to have those conversations. But it takes a lot of practice. It's taken me a lot of years. Any other questions or concerns or anything we can give clarification to? No? Well, we appreciate you all being here tonight with us and attending.
Thank you.
so much.